morning, Katie here from Equestrian Movement, and today I want to talk about one of the things that my students need a lot of coaching in as they progress with their riding, especially when they have a green or young horse. So when we start out with a green or young horse, they need a lot of help. They need us to be giving them a lot of direction. Quite often they don't actually understand what those directions are, and so we're giving them a lot of support to find those answers. But then what happens is that our riders tend to not let go of control of allowing the horse to find the answers once they're ready to start seeking. And so it's quite a challenge that prevents us from moving forward, is that the complexity of cues that we're going to be using when we're riding our horse just get more and more. We just are layering more aids and more cues on top of each other, because we want to think of the way that we're working with our horses as like a language. So we start with what I call our single aid cues. So 2 legs mean go, 2 reins mean stop, rein opposite leg means move away from. That's a single aid cue, and I call that our alphabet. We've only got 2 hands, 2 legs and a seat to communicate such a complexity of language that we want when we're in the saddle riding our horses. And so then what we're doing from there is we start introducing what I call complex aid cues. So we're putting 2 aids on that mean opposite of each other, and we're expecting the rider to know what the answer is, but we're also expecting the horse to know what the answer is. And so what happens is what we're doing is we're putting 2 letters together and we're creating a new word. So for example, our half halt is we're going to like roll our seat back, put a little bit of contact into the horse's mouth and ask them to rock back into their haunches. And we're also putting our legs on at the same time. So we're saying add energy into your weight, into your sit. And so as you add energy into a weight sit, we're communicating a new word, and that new word is balance, and that's what our half halt is. Let's say we're going to go onto the circle. So when we're introducing our circle aids to our baby horses and we're doing our single aid cues, our outside leg says turn in combination with our inside leg saying follow. Our inside leg with our outside rein is going to say out. So we're saying turn, out, with forward. So we've got 3 of our alphabet aids on there, our 3 single aid cues on there. And then what happens is that the horse shifts its balance to be able to get around the circle with turn, with out, with forward. And they develop some bend through their body. And so we're creating this new word. This new word is bend. So we're putting those 3 single aid cues on together and creating that new word with that horse, and that new word again is balance. So what we're doing is we're creating this complex language that we're asking of our horse, and we're starting it with simple one behavior, mark that behavior, motivate them to do it again, and then we're going to start trying to put it together. What happens is our students, us included, like this is an evolutionary part of your riding, is that at some stage you're going to have to learn how to leave your horse alone and not micromanage them. And this is the challenge as a rider, because you're keeping everything together out there. You're like holding the reins and you're holding your legs and you're trying to hold everything together for your horse, and you know that the moment that you take those aids off, everything is going to fall apart and your horse is going to stop, or they're going to fall in, or they're not going to do what you're trying to keep them together to do. And so that's really limiting in your potential and what you can create with your horse, because you're having to put all of your effort in and micromanage your horse's effort. There's nothing left over to take that step up into that next playing field of where you want to work with your horse. And so what we want to do is we want to practice taking the aids off and encouraging them to maintain what we've asked them to do for a period of time until we ask them to do something different. And so this is really the challenge of the rider, is to let our horses make the mistake. Take the aids off and then correct the mistake, rather than just putting like all of your effort in just to maintain what you've got. So if you're putting all of your effort in to just maintain what you've got, you're not going to be able to move forward, and you're not going to be able to improve. And it's that internal battle that you know that when you take those aids off, your horse is going to stop doing it. But do you want to kick just to maintain every step forward that you have with your horse? Or do you want to put your legs on, ask them to go, and then when they come back to the walk, because that's what's going to happen, we're going to ask them to trot, and then they're going to give us some trot, and they're going to say, well, you're not asking me to stay in trot, so they just come back to walk. Are you going to let them come back into walk and correct the walk so that they maintain the trot, or you're going to have to continue to like work super hard just to maintain what you've got? So that's, you know, what we really want to do when we're working with our horses is once we've got a cue consolidated and they know what the answer is, we want them to have the confidence to maintain the ask until we change the ask and we want something else of them. And so what we want to do is we want to take the aids off and we want to correct the mistake rather than keeping the aids on just to maintain what we got. And it is such a psych out for us as the riders, because we want to keep holding everything together for our horse. We want to keep micromanaging the horse. We don't want to like release that pressure, and because we know that they're not going to continue what we've asked them to do unless we're like keeping this pressure on them. But this is also how we're going to learn how to ride with less pressure and how to ride easier. You don't have to work as hard if the horse is sustaining the ask and waiting for you to change the ask to ask something different of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the aids off. What happens when you stop doing what you're doing? The horse probably stops, and so then you go, no, that's not my cue for stopping. So we ask them to go back up into the trot or into the canter and reward them for going back up into that upward transition. Really, honestly, like especially if we're just looking at forwardness and your horse is fit enough to sustain this, just doing this over a couple of lessons generally fixes your horse not staying forward unless you're kicking them. And how much easier is it to ride your horse when you're not having to kick them just to keep them going? Then your legs can focus on other things like establishing bends and leg yields and transitions, clarity of transitions for canter leads and things like that. So pop a comment below. Let us know where you're micromanaging your horse. What are you doing where you're having to put 110% effort in to get your horse's 5% effort? And what happens when you take that aid off? I want you to go and experiment, and I want you to take your aid off and wait for the horse to choose to do something else, and then correct them and ask them back on their way. And then I want you to come back to the comment below and let me know how long it took for you to get your horse better on your aids and more sensitive to your aids. Micromanaging as a rider is a huge mental challenge that we have to navigate, and being able to take the aids off and our horse sustain the ask without us having to constantly hassle them to maintain it is part of our evolutionary growth as a horse rider. Until next week, happy trails.